There we go. Okay. So welcome everybody. This is our monthly Builder series. And so this session is once a month, and it's designed to help support anyone who's interested in growing their team, growing their business, exploring that passive income side. There's lots of questions that come up. I do want to remind everybody that there is a complete series, that 6-part series that goes through different steps, starts from telling your story, and then also how to, make that introduction to your senior partner, whoever that may be. And that can be found, Casey, I think it's also on the Builder site. Is that correct? The 6-part series? Okay, and that's empirebuilders.pro. It's a fantastic site that has so many resources. Casey did an incredible job of building out this resource. I believe I was speaking to your marketing person, Casey, 64 pages of amazing content, anywhere from how do you onboard to videos, resources, and past training events. So I just want to invite you guys to empirebuilders.pro. And then with that, I will hand it over. Oh, there it is. Look at that. Builders Bootcamp. There's the whole series. Your homework assignment, if you haven't done it, is to make sure that you go through each of those series. We took a lot of time to put those together. Casey put all of her best practices in there, and it has a step-by-step guide on, just the way to be able to make these introductions and to invite people into your circle without it being, like a cheesy salesperson type thing, really being a genuine invitation, and how to bring your partners into that conversation. So I will hand it over to the amazing Casey Council, and there you go. It's all yours.
Thanks, Rosie, for the tee up, and welcome everyone. Great to see many of your faces. Looking forward to seeing many more of your boxes turn into faces. And we're going to jump right in this morning. As we do, the purpose of this call is to help you get what you need. We have no idea what it is that you need unless you tell us. So I'm going to start off just doing a little bit of mindset and perspective this morning. And as we do that, would love for you to please put items in the chat that are important for you to get clarification on, get support with, maybe somewhere that you're stuck. Nothing is off the table here. And so this is a place where we can all learn and collaborate together. As we jump in and start this morning, I'm going to share my screen and bring up a quote, and want to get us kind of geared to having a conversation that's maybe a different conversation. So this quote, if you want to build a ship, don't herd people together to collect wood, and don't assign them tasks and work, but rather teach them to long for the endless immensity of the sea. As you hear that quote, see that quote, read that quote, what is the connection that you make to how this applies to building, growing, nurturing, scaling an organization? What comes up for you? Just take yourself off mute and jump right in.
Vision. You got to create a vision and keep people inspired by the vision, because the daily ins and outs are going to be uncertain. They're going to move every single day. So just keeping them anchored to the bigger picture always. That's what I gathered so far.
Love that, Leo. Who else has something they'd like to contribute?
What is your mission statement, or what exactly as a organization you really want to achieve? And then to get that, again, going back to the daily routines and things like that, but then what is exactly what you're trying to achieve here? Ultimate goal.
Great.
I see as giving them a, like Leo said, a vision of the sea and the endless possibilities out there, and give them a reason to want to go out to the sea themselves, instead of showing them or telling them, hey, this is how you get to the sea. Just show them the possibilities of what's out there, the immensity of it, and that there is something for you out there, and they'll figure out a way to get out there.
Love that. Thank you. Who else has something they'd like to contribute?
I see that you want to build a ship, and so you're going to be looking for people who are like-minded and have the same desires to do that with you, so the cream will rise to the top. Instead of trying to get everybody to do what you want to work with people who want the same thing.
I love that alignment. Yep.
I also think it's the fruits. So the fruits of your own labor, you know, you're being an example, and hopefully you're able to work with people that are wanting those same desires as well.
Nice.
Hey,
All right, well,
Casey,
yeah.
like I tell folks that are getting married, create some great memories, because when times get hard, you're gonna need to rely on those. So create experiences that and value that people yearn for and that they look for, and that creates value, especially when things are going tough. They always have that to lean on.
So what you're saying is it's not a matter of if it's going to suck, it's just when.
Yeah, and it sucks right now for a whole lot of people.
Well, I want to stop and talk about this for just a second, because this is a really, really, really important point as we start today's conversation. When we're focused on a vision, like endless sea, possibilities, you're in that vision. It's not a matter of if there's going to be challenges and obstacles. It's not a matter of if things are going to go sideways. It's not a matter of if you're going to get discouraged. It's not a matter of if things are going to break down multiple times. It's just a matter of when those things are going to happen. And what I've noticed happens for a lot of people is they get so fixated on the vision and the possibility that when things, all those other things that are inevitably naturally a part of creating that vision start to happen, they start to question the vision. And it's a really important distinction from a mindset perspective that challenge, breakdown, obstacles, things not working does not mean the vision's not valid, does not mean that it will work. It's that when you have a large vision, you will have challenges, obstacles, roadblocks that are equal in size to the vision that you desire to create. Because if you were the person to have already manifested and created that vision, you would have already done it. And so there is a refining process. And this is the part that a lot of people really miss. And it's something that a lot of people don't even take into consideration, is that in anything, right? You could be training for a marathon, going into a relationship that ultimately ends up in a, some kind of long-term commitment, however you define that, is that why are we surprised when the challenges and obstacles come up? Why are we surprised when the breakdowns happen? And why do we allow those things to sometimes get in and question our vision versus lean in and keep moving, right? So I want you to imagine for a moment that quote about teaching people to long for the endlessness and the vastness of the sea. And just by a show of hands, how many of you have read the book Think and Grow Rich? Just hands up. Okay, for those of you that are on video. So for those of you that haven't read that book, Think and Grow Rich is a book by Napoleon Hill, and he talks about cultivating something called the white heat of desire. Who remembers him talking about that in that book and would like to speak to exactly what that means?
I can.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's been a little while, but when he talks about desire, he basically talks about having such a deep burning desire that nothing is going to stop you. Nothing is going to get in your way. And he brings up so many good examples about people who just persevered even when it seemed like the worst conditions ever. And it's really about like not quitting.
Great. Anyone else have something like to contribute on the white heat of desire that Napoleon Hill talks about in Think and Grow Rich?
The passion that'll take you to the next step when you just don't feel like it. You know, you need to do it, but you always have that white passion to keep moving forward.
Okay, great. So in Napoleon Hill, in a lot of ways, was the father of personal development. That book that took him over 10 years to write. It was released in 1929, and he'd studied and interviewed the most successful people of his time at that time, and found out what they all had in common. And one of the things that was in common with all of them was when they decided on a vision, they had to nurture and fuel the vision to create what he called a white hot heat, a fire and flames that burn that are coal are orange and yellow, right? But a white hot heat is hotter than that. Something that was so deep and burned so strong that that vision, no matter what, was going to become reality. Didn't matter the obstacles, didn't matter the people, didn't matter the mechanism or all the different ways that it was going to take to get it done. It was that clear. Now, I want to back up for a second and just compare and contrast you as a real estate agent prior to EXP, and think about being in the mindset of real estate agents that are not with EXP. And I want you to visualize that as them actually standing on the sands of a beautiful seashore, never having actually been in the water. Never having been in the water. And you're out in the water going, it's great out here. It's amazing. You need to come in and experience this, with all of the excitement, enthusiasm, and passion that we get once we get it, right? And that disconnect that stands between the sand and actually being in the water, right? So most people that are entrepreneurial, the majority of people that are entrepreneurial, and let's just focus on real estate in this example, have never known what it's like to not be on a transaction treadmill, have never known what it's like to actually have income that's generated outside of their own time, energy, and efforts, or their own time, energy, and efforts in their personal sales team. Most people have never experienced that. So when you start to talk about that, that is something that needs to grow and to foster and to be developed, right? EXP is nothing more than a vehicle for real estate agents to create a life that's not possible outside of this vehicle, bottom line, while selling real estate and helping clients and other agents grow and develop their careers. In its simplest form, that's what it's in. That's what it is. So a lot of times, though, we always want to go to the how this, how that, how this, how that. And what's missing is the what would it look like if, right? This came up in Leo's got a chat that I just inserted myself into on Facebook. And I want to bring up this series of questions, and maybe someone will type them in the chat for people that might be driving or want to catch them on the replay. And so this series of questions, I think, is really great. And again, as I'm going through this series of questions, this will be the last thing that I do before we jump into agenda items that you want to discuss today. But I want you to really give thought to what this series of questions would mean as you answer it for yourself. I want you to notice the answers that you come up with for yourself. And most importantly, I want you to notice and check in on what is the feeling that you have in your body as you honestly really start to ask yourself these questions. All right. So the first question, is everybody ready? Anybody not ready? Because we're going anyway. So the first question is, what happens when I have $1,000 of passive income a month? What happens for me? Give that a thought, maybe jot it down. What's different in my life? During 2007 and 2008, 95% of the people that filed bankruptcy would not have had to do that if they had an extra $500 a month. That is the actual figure across the United States. 95% of the bankruptcies would not have happened with an extra $500 of disposable income a month. Next question. What will happen when my active income, meaning your transactional income, the income that you trade time for, what will happen when my active income is met by my passive income? Or what will happen when my active income equals my passive income? Are you doing the same things with your time? Are you doing them at the same level? What will happen when my active income equals my passive income? Here's the next one. What will happen when my annual income becomes my monthly income? What will happen when my annual income becomes my monthly income? Next question, what will happen when my monthly income becomes my weekly income? What happens when my weekly income becomes my daily income? You see, as many of us think and feel, to whatever degree we have cultivated that burning white hot heat of desire, it's relative. The level of desire that you have is relative right now, based on how you've cultivated it, who you've exposed yourself to, who you've put yourself in the company of, where you regularly plug in, how you feed your mind and your brain, what happens when you are going through challenges and obstacles and breakdowns and how you navigate them. Who are you reaching out to support and coach you through those things? Like, all of those things are going to impact your white heat of desire, that burning passion, right? So I don't know what came up for any of you as you started to really give thought or consideration to those questions. However, I remember 13 years ago, the first time that I was asking myself those questions because someone else had planted those questions in my mind. I had never thought that way, ever. However, I'll always say that the quality of our lives depend on the quality of the questions that we're asking ourselves. And so when you start asking yourself different questions, you are going to start creating things at a different level and in a different way. So I'd love to get just a couple of shares of people that were present for that exercise of really going through those questions and what happened for you as we went question by question. What was your experience of that process?
Got more excited as you got toward the end. I'm like trying to add these numbers in my head and I'm like, I can't even go there.
Okay, I love it. Thank you, Carla. Who else? What was your experience?
Never thought about this way. And like, I feel like now it gives me the different perspective, like what questions that I'm asking myself. I think I ended up till monthly income, but not weekly and daily.
Great, love it. So we expanded your mind a little bit. Who else would like to share?
I went from, okay, extra stuff, and then like, what am I going to do with it all by question number 5? You know what I'm saying? It's like, wait, what do I do with this money? Crypto, all of stuff that Lindstrom always talks about. And it's just like, okay, now it's a bigger problem. It's a problem, but it's a great problem to have. But then I started digging in, and it's like, I need to start asking myself these questions on a daily basis to trigger the way my mind thinks. I noticed everything was when, not if, but when these things happen. So it was a future pacing is what I like to call it. And that is a completely different way of thinking. Instead of using the word if and inserting the word when, it changes the way your mind thinks and your mind goes after it, I think.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you for sharing, Bruce. All right, we'll take one more.
So I actually got a little bit, I don't know if it was fear and excitement at the same time, because I literally have never in my life thought that. I have that flame for, my business and always have, and felt like manifesting it, but I feel like writing it down, they always say when you write things down, it's better. So we're almost declaring it at the same time. So definitely a different thought process and a little trigger happy there mentally. So I really liked it.
Love it. So I'm going to invite you all to have these questions out on little sticky notes in front of you, wherever you work. Our environment dictates what we create, period. The people in our environment, the physical things in our environment, anything that we allow into our environment is going to influence that. And what I love about questions is question creates a possibility. A lot of times my experience is we set goals for ourselves or we have a vision for ourselves and we're really selling ourselves short because we're setting that goal or that vision relative to the degree that we see or believe it's possible that we can create it or have it. And what's possible is when you start to really stay in that place of asking questions, just like Bruce said, your mind, your body, your physiology, the subconscious part of your brain goes to work on finding it, right? And at the end of the day, none of us, until we have, we all experience relative degrees of this, but to live a life truly free is one where we're not encumbered by time or money, period. And when we talk about that original quote that we started with about standing on the shore and looking at the sea, for most people, this is a concept and an idea that is not possible, too good to be true, and raises suspicion for people rather than hope and inspiration. So it's important to know that when you're going out and you're building an organization, the environment that you're bringing into conversation every day is people. 99% of the people that you're going to be talking to, that you're going to be inviting, are standing in the sand on the shore and maybe aren't even aware that the sea is in front of them because they're looking at their feet. Well, where am I at right now? What am I doing today with my business? What am I doing this quarter with my business? And their head is down and focused on the now versus focused out on what's actually possible for them to create and to experience in their lives. So, I wanted to spend a good chunk of that because this call is really important. You're all on this call because you want to build something, and what you want to build is going to happen relative to the vision that you have. And the vision that you have is going to be relative to the degree that you cultivate that white hot heat of desire that burns inside of you, an inferno, right? And mental preparation is a key piece. It's the foundation for everything because that energy transfers when you go talk to people. That certainty transfers, the excitement transfers, the passion transfers, the care transfers, right? And then keeping in mind and really recognizing like, hey, I've got to remember what my experience is based on what I've been exposed to and what I've learned and experienced so far versus what someone else who's standing on the shore might be. All right. So with that, let's jump right in. The first question that we had was need some clarification on revenue share explanation. Can I get some clarification on the actual question, please?
Yes. To Dewey. Cassie, I'm going tomorrow to meet 300 members in that KW office, meeting 5 brokers and their director of growth. And one question that I think that I read, I did your boot camp and everything. I don't have a single person in my downline yet, but I managed to get this appointment and I don't want to lose that momentum and excitement. I'm prepared for my presentation. Brent Go, we are going to watch it together on the big screen. I don't know how to explain the revenue share. Watch so many videos on the YouTube. Brent goes there. There was 2 other people, how to compare KW with EXP, things like that. But I'm meeting these people at 300 agent team and broker is like going to drill me tomorrow. I ask for help to come. Somebody can come with me to my broker, but I am not getting that help. And I really want to, tonight is the day that I'm like, want to read, maybe explain it. I don't know who I can reach to explain the revenue share, exactly how that works for that kind of a team.
Okay, great. So first off, you mentioned something that's really important, and that is that, working together. The validation of having someone else that either jumps on a call that is not with you physically in person during that time, at the end of that, to have a conversation together is the game changer because it's not just you. And you have 4 people. You have 4 people between the person that sponsored you, and actually you have 7 people. You've checked with every single one of them?
I checked the ones that are in my area. Fortunately, it's on the East Coast right now in Philadelphia. Both the three leaders, they came from that office and then joined EXP. But
Okay, so the answer is you checked with the ones that are local.
local.
Yep. So here's
the
a
broker.
hold on.
Yeah,
Here's a
and the broker.
mindset thing. Your support team is not who's physically there locally. Your support team is who's physically there locally and who's 7 levels up, has an invested interest financially in helping you see success. So
Yes.
first thing is keep going up the ladder until you find whoever is going to be available to support at the end of that meeting. Think about what that demonstrates. And this again is a mindset piece. When you say one of the things that I love about EXP is that we are really partners all around the nation and the world. And then you have someone on a call that's not in your local area to be part of that conversation. You are demonstrating the truth of how we work together. If you just say, oh yeah, you know, I have business partners all over, the support's great, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, well, where are they? Well, the ones that live here were busy today. Think about what that communicates, right? You have an incredible opportunity to demonstrate the strength of the organization that you're a part of. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, I'm a simple person. And if it can't be done in like 2 minutes, it's too complicated. So when somebody asks me how revenue share works, I just say this, hey, listen, is it a normal practice based on your experience in real estate that you're on some kind of split, meaning a percentage that you pay to the company that you're working with? Yes. Great. What EXP does with their split, their part of the split, the money that they make on that $16,000 cap, is they take it and they share it back with the agents through a structure, a compensation structure that rewards and thanks the agents for bringing their most trusted friends and colleagues to our company, period.
Yep.
That's
then
it.
how does the company makes the profit then?
So that is another layer of question, right? That is, this is where the 3-way call comes into play, because everyone's going to go through that in a little bit different way. And this is how you get trained on how to have those conversations. I always say training doesn't work, work trains, right? So if we sit here and have the conversation and I run through that dialogue with you, that's one experience, but it's not helping you grow or build your business. If you're in that appointment and you have a third-party validation call and that's answering that question, your training of the word tracking, the language, how they address that question is happening in the same moment that you're generating and creating business, which is really, it's really, really powerful, and it's counterintuitive, right? I mean, think about how we are raised. We go to school, we get an education, we get a degree, and then we go out into the world to practice what we've learned. This is the exact opposite. This is, hey, I'm in real estate. I'm learning and training myself, but I know the vision clearly enough, and I'm surrounded with incredible partners. And that is one of the reasons I'm here. And as that conversation happens, the partnership is demonstrated, your training is happening, and your prospect is getting their question answered. It's the highest amount of leverage that you can get in any conversation.
Okay.
Right?
I'm
So
gonna
all kinds of little things, like if you have that question for yourself, you know, that, what is it, 11-12% of people only are actually building and bringing people to the company. 90, you know, close to 90% of everyone else is selling real estate. So do you think there's enough profit in the company of the 90% that are just here selling real estate? Pretty sure there is, right? So it's just, it's about the concept. If you can get, the concepts are the most important. And when you can keep the concepts really simple, you can always get to, you know, the person that wants to know all the details and the breakdown of that. But like we started our call with, that bigger conversation around how do you look at it? What's the perspective you take, the 25,000-foot view, and how you communicate that to be able to connect, right? Because the challenge that I've seen is that the more people get immersed in EXP and start to understand all the ins and outs of the revenue share and the breakdown and the percentages and the amount of each capping agent for each level and going into that, we're immersed in it and we start to absorb it and understand it. But remember, we take that conversation out to someone that's standing in the sand, and you're like 3 miles out at sea, and they're like, that is so confusing. And when someone is confused, they freeze. They will do nothing in confusion. And so my recommendation is always stay high level, stay concept, stay big picture to connect on the idea, and work together with your senior leaders and senior partners on the specifics, right? Leo, yes, please contribute.
I will just say this, for sure, when it's a larger organization like that, you know, everything that Casey is saying is spot on. You literally just have to connect, get in their world, figure out what's most important to them, build massive rapport, figure out, you know, what kind of things are really, really important. And definitely not do any sort of explaining. Don't do any selling. Don't do any of that, because they're looking immediately to tell you no on anything you tell them, right? They're looking. So you're going to give them evidence. You're going to explain it. You're going to explain it. You're going to explain it. And next thing you know, they're going to have 3 or 4 reasons to say no to you. So your objective in any of these conversations is to say nothing. Really, like to try to say as little as possible, as funny as that sounds. So, you know, I'm telling you guys from experience, you guys got to connect. You got to get into their world. You got to figure out what's most important to them. You got to figure out where they're going 5 years from now, right? You got to figure that out. And yes, like transfer them over to someone else in your organization. Have that person be the one that explains it, because that edifies the other individual. That keeps you in the connection seat and not in the selling seat. You do not want to sell this thing. This thing sells itself. It's a no-brainer. But people don't make logical decisions. People make emotional decisions. So we got to get them connected to their emotions, right? So that's what I have to say.
I love that, Leo. And let's talk about why that is. For anytime you are presented something new, your immediate answer is no for every single one of you. Does anyone disagree? Before you say yes, you say no quite often. Unless you already know, you already have an experience, or it's something that you already are like right there on the same page with. Most people's internal is going to be no. And why is that? Because the reptilian part of your brain, the survival part of your brain, when you introduce something new and something different, for the majority of people, what that does is it takes them into a different thought process where there's unknown, there's uncertainty, there's fear. And so the biological thing that happens in the body is for the body to go, no, I'm good. Things are good, right? Because you're coming in and you're presenting something that's disruptive. And so physiologically, the way that we are hardwired is to have resistance, to say no. What removes that resistance? It's exactly what Leo was talking about. It's the connection. It's the brainstorming. It's the collaboration. It's the future forward conversation. There's no resistance there. None, right? And so like spot on. Thank you for jumping in and for sharing that. Okay, we're going to jump to the next question, which is the last question it looks like for today in the chat, which is, please go over the best practices for inviting someone to Cabo. What I'd like to do here is really source some collaboration, because we've got some incredible leaders on this call that are going to Cabo, that have people going to Cabo, that have armies going to Cabo, and talk about what those conversations have looked like. And it's kind of like, we go back to the quote that I shared at the beginning. We were all talking about the same thing. However, based on the individual, everyone had a slightly different perspective or resonated on a slightly different level. So I could sit here and talk about it, which is, you know, mildly interesting, but not really. I think there's much more value to get from this community of people in that conversation. So who'd like to jump in first on that?
The question is on Cabo. How do you get people to Cabo?
Yeah, what's the best, go over best practices for inviting someone to Cabo.
Asking them great questions like you just told us, right? Getting them to see that there is a big ocean of amazing things happening. Basically, you just and again, I mean, I guess for me, when I invite somebody over to Cabo, it's like, it's not just like I randomly call somebody today, right? And just say, hey, we're going to Cabo, right? It's I think Cabo, the leverage is that you should have or already have a pipeline of people you're talking to. And this pipeline of individuals, like you can have 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 people, you know, really every single time there's an event, you got to invite them to the event, right? Because some people are going to see it day one. Some people are going to see it 2.5 years later. Like I have a big brokerage that's moving over here in the next week that I've been working on for almost 3 years, right? And it just, you know, a lot of people are going to say, oh my God, you got this massive thing. No, it's 2.5 years in the making. So what I would say is use it for the people that you've already built a relationship with. I mean, that's at least my advice. You know, I don't know any other thing to say as of now, but maybe there's somebody else here with a better idea than me.
So I'm gonna give 3 words to describe what Leo just described. It is the escalation of exposures. So if you go under the Builders Bootcamp and under those 6 different training videos, what you'll see in the follow-up is obviously the fortunes in the follow-up, but there's an escalation of exposure. So a one-on-one phone call could lead to a one-on-one meeting where you're going through the model explained for someone. That would be an escalation in the exposure process. They've watched the video, you get them on a call with your third-party validation. And by the way, this is a key thing. If you throw someone on the phone that hasn't seen the model explained, what is there to validate? They have no frame of reference. So the third-party validation happens after they've learned that model, that exposure, and the third-party validation then happens after that to validate and dig in deeper on what they've seen. That would be an escalation in that process. Then maybe being invited to a local event is the next escalation in that process. Then maybe being invited to a Zoom training. Doesn't have to go in that order, but you're escalating the process so that by the time you go, oh my gosh, some of the top leaders and most highly producing real estate agents in our company are all coming together for a mastermind, and it all exclusive at a, you know, ugly little place called Cabo. Clear your schedule for, you know, March 6th through 11th. It's a no-brainer conversation, right? What's it going to take for you to clear those dates? Because they're in an exposure process that's been escalating. Thank you, Leo, for that. Who else has something to like to contribute on that?
Hey, a second way. Hey, I got tickets to Cabo. We're going to Cabo on these dates. Like, and then you buy their tickets, obviously, right? So it's gonna be hard for them to say no. And if they say no, then you give the tickets to someone else, right? And then you could say the next person and the next person, the next person, like make an investment. And obviously, if you want to invite people to Cabo, you got to make sure you got your ticket and you got to make sure you got your room as well, right? Because you're not going to be able to sell it to anybody, or I want to say sell it, but you're not going to be able to convey the inspiration if you are not committed yourself. So that's going to be another big key element, I would say, to that. There's a YouTube video on the Cabo from last year. So if you guys want to get inspired of like what was said, there's Brent Gove has a YouTube channel with all the things that happened in Cabo last year. So if you want to like tell them about the people that were there, Len Sanford, billionaire, Glenn Stearns, billionaire, Grant Cardone, billionaire, Elena Cardone, right? Like you want to talk to them about that. I think you should definitely watch the YouTube channel for Brent on Cabo.
The one thing that Leo said that he said one word, investment. And that's what I just looked on. I mean, he said, get these tickets ahead of time and use it as an investment to try to get people to go down there instead of looking at it as an expense. And every time you take money out of your wallet, out of your bank account, the first thought is, man, this is going to be expensive, but look what that is going to get you. When you put money in the stock market, you don't think about it as being an expense. You look at it as being an investment, and it's the same thing. And I appreciate that you put that word in there instead of just, hey, buying tickets. So
it's called skin in the game. The more
okay.
skin you have in the game, the more your white hot heat of desire builds, right? I mean, imagine you're like, I'm going to Cabo and I need to come up with 50 grand. I've invested the 50 grand. Shoot, I got to get butts in seats. Like I'm out 50 grand if I don't have people there, right? That is the best way to motivate yourself into action, because there's a pain on the other side if you don't get into action and perform. Right. And so what I've noticed over, and maybe you've noticed the same things, is that people who have their back against the wall or create a situation where their back is against the wall to take action will take action. So sometimes that happens organically in life, right? Think 2007, 2008 crash. And then other times we put ourselves in that position. Oh, cool. I just dropped 50 grand on tickets and this and that. And I better get those people, right? I'm using an extreme, something extreme, so that you can see like what that would create inside of you to go get your, 50 grand back. That would be usually pretty motivating for most people because of what's on the line if that doesn't happen, right? So those are the two ways to really create from that space. Okay, great. The last thing, I think those were the last two questions. Here's what I would say is just on a really simplistic level. Let's say I was reaching out to Sherry and I said, just checked in. Sherry, we've had a rough couple of years. Some people have had the best years of their lives. Other people have had the most challenging. Some people are in the middle and, completely complacent. How's it been for you? And then finding out, so this year, 2022, we're essentially in a new year. Are you looking to recreate what you did last year, do a little less, create something more? Like, where are you at? What you doing? And then once I know what Sherry's doing, it would be natural if she says that she wants to create more, expand and grow, is like, Sherry, I'm sure you'd agree that we all grow relative to who we surround ourselves with and the environments that we're in. Would you agree? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, there's an opportunity for you to quantum and take a catapult that's coming up in March. I'm going because I'm committed to growing and quantum leaps and bounds this year and expanding myself. And there's nothing more than I'd love for you to join me there and come with me. What do you think? Right? It could be something as simple as that. When I've got a relationship, is that going to work in a cold call? No. Is that going to work on a private Facebook message or Instagram or a bot? No. This is the human to human, like, relationship connection piece of it. So again, there's like a spectrum, but there's principles that sit underneath the spectrum. And so when we go to the, like, what do I say or how do I say it? We're back to the quote at the beginning that I'm going to flash again, which is this quote to take us back to where we started. And that is, if you want to build a ship, don't herd people together and collect wood. Don't assign them tasks and work, right? This is like, what do I need? The words? No. I need the burning white hot desire of the immensity of the sea, the endless immensity of the sea, what that means for you and your family for generations to come, and what that's going to mean for that person potentially as you share with them. So before we wrap today's call, I'll give any opportunity for anyone that's got any kind of like aha, or what I call a BFO, which is a blinding flash of the obvious. Anything that you'd like to share, contribute, or say before we close out today's call? Go, Bruce.
I just wanted to say, and I put it in the chat, that everyone, and I believe this wholeheartedly, said no to where they are now. For instance, Julie, who's going to go talk to 300 people, how many of those 300 people didn't want to come to KW, but they're there now? So everyone's open to change as long as you give them the vision and the reason and a good enough vision to change. So I think it's, and I am definitely not doing what I need to do to get to where I want to be right now. But I do speak the game. I know the game. I have a doing problem, not a knowing problem, unfortunately. But everyone has said no. I said no to real estate before I got in real estate. I said no to KW before I went to KW. I said no to EXP, but guess where I am? And no one's going to come into my head and talk me out of ESP anytime soon. So I just think it's everyone's waiting to hear something to come over, to be perfectly honest with you. And you just have to be the person to bring that something differently than whoever else has asked them in the past, because I'm sure everyone's been hit by someone soon in recent history over the last 2 years, I got to believe. And they're just waiting to hear the right thing.
All right. Thanks for that, Bruce. Anyone else? Last thoughts, comments? Martha.
second. Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, something that hit me really clear today, this morning in my readings and my routine, it was something that, because I am the kind of person that I like to be ready and be prepared and get the whole acknowledge of what I'm going to talk about before going out. And, you know, and that preparing to be ready, it has taken me so long. And I'm in that urge to help people, to bring people to the company, because we have seen and experienced what the other brokers do and what is the potential that everybody has, and we want to bring them to our family. But that has been my problem. And in the scripture that I read is like, you know, that boy went with 2 fishes and 2 loaves of bread. And he came with what he had in hands. So he didn't have to have the whole amount of bread and fish to feed 5,000, 500,000 people, but he believed and he followed and he took action. And I think for this morning, for us and for me especially, and I just want to share it with you guys, is that we need to take action. And if we get rejected first time, we know next time, and we learn how to address those rejections. And we have, you know, the backup. In my case is Leo. I'm so grateful for Leo. And yeah, it's just to be mindful and to be resourceful. And that's something I'm working on, because I have so many ideas, but I haven't done anything because I have thought, oh, I need to do this before, I need to do that. But there is people hungry there. There are other agents suffering because they don't have enough money sometimes to pay the bills. And in my case, it happened with Keller Williams like 2 years ago. I didn't have much income at this time of the year, because it's like kind of slow season. And I reached out to the company, and they asked me for my whole list of expenses to give me like maybe a tenth of what I needed. And I felt kind of frustrated, and I felt sad, because, you know, that is not what the company offers, you know, and what I have seen that offered to other agents. And okay, that's another story. But yeah, we know we are in a good place, and we need to bring people to share what we have.
I love that. Thanks for sharing. I'm going to leave you all with this visual. This was from my direct sales career early on, and it applies here as well. And so there was 2 people standing on stage. Both that were, you know, for this instance, imagine they're both realtors that want to build organizations within EXP. And then there was the sponsor, the person that had brought them, right? So think about who your sponsor is. Your sponsor standing there with you, and there's you, and there's someone else. And they started a clock, and that clock went for 2 minutes. And the person that was on the left, their one instruction was, go find people and bring them to me. And the person that was on the right, which was the same instruction, hey, let's build a group. And the person on the right was like, okay, well, what's the product? Meanwhile, the person on the left has run into the audience, grabbed the person and brought them on stage. And they just had to keep doing that. And then the other person was like, okay, well, how long has it been around? I need to know that. Okay, well, what's in it? We need to do that. Meanwhile, the other person is running and bringing people to stage, right? And after 2 minutes, there was literally over 100 people on the group on the left, and the same person standing by themselves on the right that was asking questions, learning things, and getting ready to get ready. And it was such an incredible experience, like a visceral experience, to go, wait a minute, both of these people had the same objective, and it was to build a group and to build an organization. They both knew nothing. One of them went out and was learning everything to get ready, and the other one did something totally different, which was just get into action knowing nothing and bring them back to the sponsor to do all of the work, right? And the immensity of the group that got built in such a short period of time, the same amount of time for both people with a very different action and strategy. And so when we talk about a system, when we talk about the value of third-party validation and working together with the people that you're in business with, getting the people to the people is what there is to do as part of that process, right? And everything else you'll learn along the way as you're essentially shadowing. But the end result will be very different in what someone will build that takes the action of the person on the left versus what someone will build versus what takes the action on the right or has that strategy on the right. So I'm gonna leave you with that visual, and maybe one day I'll do that from stage in the XP event. That'd be really fun. People will sit there and go, oh crap, oh crap, right? Because when you break it down to what it's the most simple piece of what we're doing, we're connecting people and to opportunity with our company, period. End of story. All right, my friends, love you all.
Love that.
So grateful to
Thank
be
you.
in business with you. Thank you for being here this morning. This recording will be posted in the empirebuilders.pro Facebook group once I receive it. And then we will look forward to seeing you for next month's call. There's a ton of other things to plug into between now and then. However, everyone make it a great rest of your day and month.
Thank you.